Welcome to the Triage Podcast, special edition Q&A to break up this series that we've been doing. Just wanted to get you guys input, see what you wanted to ask about. And just a little bit of a change of tune. But before we get there, Paddy, how are you?
I am absolutely splendid, Gary. Although today is actually fucking roasting hot. And normally I'm not one to complain about the heat. I like the heat. However, this is October. What the fuck? It's like 16 or 17 degrees today.
It's like warm and wet here. It's like that ugly, sticky business,
Muggy, humid type thing. It's not great, But look, we won't complain because it could be freezing cold. Although actually, I kind of like the cold, so that's not an issue.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, we're not here to talk about the weather. How are you, Gary? You were in, I was going to say college today, but you weren't in college today. You were in
the hospital.
I was going to say no hospital. On hospital?
On hospital.
Hospital, yeah. Anyway, you were in the hospital. What's the story with that? How has being in the hospital been? Enjoyable?
Yeah, very good. I'm on anesthetics this week. Not necessarily my favorite, to be honest. I do like ICU, but other than that, not really my favorite specialty. Maybe I'll eat those words in years to come and I want to be an anesthetist, but for now, not too interesting. Have surgery next week, which is cooler because cutting things with knives, it's good vibes. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Fantastic. Anyway, let's get into this Q&A. You asked people on your Instagram for a few questions. I've actually had a few questions just banked up from random people asking questions. So I have a few questions. You have a few questions. We're going to try keep these more related to the training side of things because obviously we have been doing this training series. But there are obviously a few questions in there that are just, random or tangential to all the stuff that we have been discussing. So Gary, away with you. Let's go. What's the first question?
Yeah, so first question is from Jenny, who asks, what advice would you give to a newly qualified personal trainer who would like to start online coaching too? So this is obviously something that is increasingly on the radar of many personal trainers, particularly during the coronavirus pandemic. I imagine many trainers had to rethink their businesses and start to think, right, how am I going to move things online? It definitely makes a lot of sense for damage control in the future too, because there's a non-zero probability that there could be either further lockdowns or other novel viruses that could lead to pandemics in the future. And therefore, you can see that there's some sort of fragility with only having one element to your business. So it would make sense from a business perspective to at least have some sort of online element. Now, with that said, when you're early on in your personal training career, this definitely depends on your background pre-personal training, but assuming a blank canvas, I do think it's really important that people do get experience on the gym floor. That experience isn't as important for everyone because some people, maybe they might have previously worked in physiotherapy or as a fitness class instructor or yoga instructor, where they're more used to working with people. But for many people, I think the soft skills of, communication and queuing clients, being able to spot maybe technical errors that need correction, etc. All those types of things are gained through experience on the gym floor. And while you can replicate that to some degree through video analysis online, etc., it's definitely good to get that experience. So that would be my first piece of advice, I guess, is don't rush into it too soon and recognize that there is a lot of value to working on the gym floor first. But it's definitely valuable to work online. And I think that it's increasingly possible to do that really well. It's very easy to put together high quality documentation that provides your clients with education using different software, like whether it's just Microsoft Word or you want to use something more elaborate like Canva, Lucidchart, etc. All these things are out there to make the delivery of information really easy and really well presented. And you've also got so much software that could be used and just basic social communication mechanisms like WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook groups, email, etc., that can allow you to communicate with your client through voice messages, through video. You've got Zoom where you can do your consultations. You've got, WhatsApp where you can analyze training videos, Google Drive where they can upload their training videos, etc., etc., etc. What I'm getting at is that online coaching is no longer maybe what it was 10 years ago, where email was basically all people might have thought about. You get your macros and, you get your program, and that's kind of it. You check in with your coach once a week. There's so many other options to improve the quality of your service. And I think getting good at that is something that is very valuable. So I guess my point there is it's worth doing, but I haven't necessarily told you exactly what advice I would give you there yet. But before I move on, have you got anything to interject there with Paddy?
Well, just especially on just what you just said there, just what you said there. I would just get a coach, right? Because this is probably going to like fast forward all of the things that you just said there in terms of like you are selling a product. If you've never got coaching, you are selling a product that you have never consumed. Like you don't know what that product is. You don't even know how good it is, how bad it is, because you have absolutely no frame of reference because you have never bought that product yourself. So I would just go out and get coaching from someone else in terms of online coaching that you're like, I actually respect this person. I actually think they'd be able to help me towards my goals. And again, they might not be your client's goals, but at least you can see how someone hopefully successful runs their business, what they do, how do they do an onboarding process, how do they do, like what forms do they use, what software do they use, etc., etc. It literally just jumps you light years ahead of the pack because you can see what you like and what you don't like, and then you can kind of make your own process and your own service based off that and what you have, you're thinking overall. But I do also agree with you in terms of thinking like get some gym floor experience first and foremost. It's actually the most valuable thing you can get in a world where people just jump online straight away. And you do see people like you very rarely see people that are successful that only ever did online, whereas people who did in person and then moved online, they seem to have more success, and success leaves clues. So let's actually listen to those clues.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in terms of advice, then, yeah, I would agree. Get a coach. Not only will you learn from someone who's been in the game as to like what a good service looks like, but you'll also learn maybe what doesn't work for you, because you might identify, even if you work with, Triage, you might work with us and see that I actually don't like the way they do that. I feel like that for my clients, I'd like to do things this way. That's something that's really valuable too. And even just speaking to other trainers, asking them how they run their service. Obviously, be respectful of people's time. One of the things that a lot of trainers be more than happy to do for you is just you book an hour of their time to do a consultation, get on Zoom with someone who you feel runs a good online coaching service, and then ask them to just walk you through how they run their service. And you'll learn things, take what you feel is appropriate, and then add your own spin on it. There's not that much that's original, really. Ultimately, the online coaching process is pretty simple in theory, in that you're providing someone with a program, you're providing them with nutrition guidelines, you're implementing methods of accountability and support, and you're making changes from there as you go forward. The nuances of that are how you communicate well, how you monitor your programs when you make changes, how you analyze the person's videos, etc. And they're the things that you learn along the way. But to start off, I think if you can book a consultation with a good trainer who's run online coaching successfully for a number of years, I think that's a pretty good way of getting started.
100%. And I'd just like to finally say on that it is actually so much easier to make more money in person than it is to make money online, right? And just let that sink in, because everyone always thinks that going online is the way to 6 figures, 7 figures, it's so scalable, blah, blah, blah. But you are going from a local, maybe there's 100, 200, 500, I don't know how many people around your area, right? You're going from that environment to billions. Everyone's online, right? So you are competing against just the local people versus competing against the billions of people that are online now, So it's actually easier in person to build a following, to build a name for yourself. Like all you have to do is get 1 or 2 clients and then get word of mouth from there. You also, especially in this day and age where people still have not the wherewithal to actually just get like basic online presence things sorted. Like you can have like a Google, like kind of storefront, like a Google like address and everything, where it's like someone just Googles, personal training in whatever area you're in, like your name should be at the top there, like stuff like that. Like there's so many very basic things that you can do that are technically online that help with an in-person business that, you know, most personal trainers just simply do not do, right? So what I'm saying is don't just jump online if you think that's the way to riches or whatever. It might suit your lifestyle, it might whatever. But in person is definitely an easier business model to make more money in a faster way once you've kind of built that name for yourself. Now, obviously, the issue with that is you are kind of confined to the local area and however many people are in your local area. Like you might be in an area where there's 100 people, like you're not going to make a lot of money there, and you might be in a lower socioeconomic status area and like you might want to charge €70 per hour for your service or whatever, but the people that are around you are only willing to spend €20 per hour for that service, you know? So you are a little bit at the whim of your location there. And then obviously it makes more sense to, you know, push the online stuff. But for most people in this day and age, in the kind of developed world, we'll say, you know, it's probably easier just to, you know, do stuff locally.
Yeah, and I think just one final thing there is, like, you made the point that it's easier to make more money, and I think people actually often think it's the other way around, but that's just because of total sampling bias, where all you see when you go online and you follow different trainers with online coaching businesses are the ones who are super successful. Okay, so there's an element of you just looking at all those people who have all these clients and tens of thousands of followers. But what you're not actually looking at are all the trainers that are like, yeah, I have 3 online clients, you know, I have 5 some months, but I'm really struggling to get traction and I don't seem to be getting more followers, and so on and so on. And sometimes that's just the result of unfortunate circumstances where you might have just gotten into the market at a very late stage and you actually don't have much that's unique, you know. And that doesn't mean that you're not better than some of those other trainers, but they got there quicker. And sometimes it can be difficult to make up that ground. So there's definitely like a larger spread of like from the highly successful down to those that are really struggling in the online world. Whereas in the real world, like one-to-one personal training context, if you're working in an established facility, it's probably a bit more like reliable. So if you're looking for like a reliable source of income that's going to gradually grow over time and your reputation is going to maintain or be more solid over time, I think the one-to-one in person is a really good base to build. So
especially if you're working in a gym or something, like literally all you have to do is get good results and talk to people, you know, like people are walking in the door anyway. So it's like shooting fish in a barrel effectively, because they're coming to you, right? Whereas online,
and you know what they want because they're in the gym.
They're literally in the gym, like they're coming to you. Whereas online, people are following you for, you know, various reasons, being like, oh yeah, I like his attitude towards this, you know. Like I doubt all 15,000 followers or however many followers you have, Gary, like are like, oh yeah, I only follow Gary for the fact that he's a personal trainer. Like definitely not, you know. So it is a bit harder in the online game. But anyway, let's get to the next question.
Yeah, next question from Tony is, breath holding during strength training, is it good or bad? So what I will say here is that a lot of people will claim that breath holding is bad for various reasons. For example, it is going to acutely increase your blood pressure. It can increase intracerebral pressure. And basically, it's just putting a lot of pressure on the system. But that's effectively the goal. Like, you're trying to develop rigidity in your body to be able to move as much weight as possible. Now, with that said, there's some cases where maybe it mightn't be the best idea. So, for example, if someone gets exertion or pressure headaches, or someone has had recent brain surgery or a history of recurring aneurysms in their brain or in their aorta or something along those lines, maybe you wouldn't consider breath holding to be something
or something like a hernia that they consistently get, you know?
Yeah, if they've got a hernia that's clearly aggravated by breath holding, or they had, you know, surgical repair of a hernia and the scar is healing, etc. But they're all kind of medical or surgical complications or considerations that you'd probably be speaking to your doctor about. And to be honest, I don't think otherwise it's something that's going to be harmful, because ultimately, yes, you do get the spike in blood pressure, very large spikes in blood pressure, in fact, when you're using a Valsalva maneuver or just breath holding in general, but it's over a very short duration. Generally, you're talking 3 to 6 seconds of breath holding, and then you're taking a breath again. And we already know that strength training, even in the presence of heavier loads and breath holding, leads to reductions in blood pressure on average. So while you do get the acute spike, it's not necessarily concordant with a chronic increase in blood pressure. So I think they'd be the major concerns that people would typically have. The only other thing that I would say is that some people can get like a kind of like a source of fainting, basically, if they hold their breath, like a vasovagal response, where when you hold your breath and you're suddenly find yourself getting lightheaded after a set, and then you fall, and collapse. Like, obviously that's not great.
But on like deadlift videos all the time.
Yeah, deadlift videos. But typically that's like 1 rep max, like straining for 10 seconds on the way up. Like, for most people, that's not going to be an issue. If it's something that you struggle with on a recurring basis, then I would, stay a bit further from failure would be my first port of call. And if it's genuinely that much of an issue, 1, see a doctor, and 2, consider using safer exercises potentially. There's some medical conditions that can lead to those types of responses too, but again, they're medical conditions, and the vast majority of people, breath holding, in my eyes, is good because it supports your strength.
Yeah, well, I would say almost the exact opposite, not the opposite to you in terms of the opposite to the question. I'd be like, is not holding your breath unsafe?
Yeah.
Like, if someone was coming to me and they're like, oh, I'm going to squat, and I'm not doing any kind of Valsalva maneuver, not like, filling your stomach with air, not holding your breath, not holding that tight, I'd be like, that's kind of unsafe. Like, you're putting yourself in a position where like your spine isn't really supported. Like it's supposed to be, you're supposed to strain, if you will, to keep that support, that intra-abdominal pressure. So in my mind, I'd be like, it's kind of unsafe not to do it, right? Mm-hmm. But there is a concern here, like you've noted a few of them, but also if we're doing like continuous reps, like there's a difference between like holding your breath for 1 rep, breathing out on the way up or whatever at the top, and resetting, bracing again, maybe even 2-3 reps. But if you're holding your breath for a rep or a set of 15, like that's a completely different thing. And you're probably limiting your ability to train by virtue of the fact that you're literally like getting hypoxia because you're just holding your breath for 15 reps or whatever it is, So there has to be some breathing going on, whether it's you reset after every single rep, whether it's you reset after 2-3 reps, whatever. It really depends on the exercise, etc. But yeah, I would probably be very pro holding your breath at certain stages, but I'm also very pro breathing. So it's about finding that balance in terms of you want to be able to continue doing your set and not just be lightheaded after rep 5 because you've basically been holding your breath since the start of rep 1, So you do need to also breathe, which then comes back to the fact that it's like, okay, you want to hold your breath at just specific times to do that kind of Valsalva maneuver. And then in between that, you are actually still breathing. So are you really holding your breath? Yeah, transiently for a couple of milliseconds, basically. But overall, it's not actually that long. Obviously, if you're doing longer reps, like you're doing a 5-second eccentric pause, whatever, like you could be holding your breath for a significant amount of time. But the way most people do reps, it's over in like less than a second, So you're not really holding your breath all that long. Like I've had exhalations and like the pause, the turnaround time between the time you exhale and the time you inhale, I've had longer of those than the way most people hold their breath during a set. So
yeah, and then just one final thing on that as well is that often this isn't actually a conscious thing. Like if you look at the research on weight training and Valsalva maneuvers, most people actually do this subconsciously. So anytime they're straining, anytime they're like, let's say, even if people are like lifting a fridge or something, you see people and hear people going, that typical sound that people make. And that's them performing a Valsalva without them realizing it. So they're breath holding / bracing, even if they're not doing the whole, elaborate that powerlifters will do. But yeah, it's fairly involuntary. It makes sense. It makes you stronger. It allows you to lift more weight. It's potentially protective against injury, or at least very poor and inefficient use of your muscles. So yes, it's a yes from me outside of medical or surgical contraindications.
100%. Next question.
Any strength conditioning, continuous professional development recommendations for a physio aside from the coach's corner? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, because I know that some places will have strength conditioning certifications for physios in particular. But honestly, if I was a physio and I felt like I didn't have good knowledge of exercise prescription, um, I would just do like a strength conditioning course that's across like multiple weekends or every second weekend or something along those lines. That's not specific to physio. That's just for trainers or wannabe trainers or whatever. And then use that knowledge in application to your specific patient population. I think that's probably the best way of going about things. In terms of like specific courses, I'm not sure. I can't necessarily endorse any in particular, but that's generally what I would be looking for. It doesn't need to be physio specific for you to be able to apply it, especially if you train yourself, because I think training yourself, and especially if you're following us and you've come across the coach's corner, should be in a good place to be able to put all those pieces of knowledge together. So I don't have much else to say about that, really.
Yeah, the only other thing I have to add to that is, are you looking for a piece of paper on the wall, or are you looking for knowledge?
Yeah.
Because if you're looking for a piece of paper on the wall, you're obviously going to have to go somewhere that gives you a cert or gives you whatever, right? And if that's the case, you probably want to do the CSCS. That's probably
that's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
Most well-recognized one, and they'll give you a cert, right? I'm not saying it's the best one, I'm not saying it's the worst one either, but it's probably the most well-recognized in terms of, like, call it strength and conditioning, right? And you also have to have a degree to get it, so pretty well recognized, etc., right? But if all you're looking for is actual like information, practical information that you can actually use, I would say probably mentorships are probably better than a course itself. Like, I'm presuming you have some sort of baseline knowledge. It's not like you're coming to this going, I don't even know, I've never trained before in my life, I don't know anything. Now, I'm presuming you have some sort of baseline knowledge. A competent mentor, in terms of someone that you can just go and bounce ideas off of and kind of bring you along, like, that can go a long way, because rather than doing a 12-week course, 2-year course, whatever it is, that teaches you like half the stuff you already know, and it's like you only learn a little bit here and there. Like, with a mentorship, you can basically just go straight in and go, right, what don't I know, what do I need to work on? Oh, you've exposed these little flaws in my thinking, blah blah blah. We can actually dive deep on the specifics of the knowledge gaps that you have, rather than just going, here's our curriculum. So I would say mentorships are better. Now, unfortunately, we don't do mentorships, so I don't know who you go to for that, but I do know that there are other coaches out there, other businesses, etc., that do mentorships. So that would be my kind of go-to if I was in that position.
And yeah, I would stand by the CSCS as well. I kind of forgot that was an option, because I just stopped recommending those types of things or thinking about those types of things, because it requires a degree. But obviously, if you're a physio, you have a degree, so it will be good, because it's definitely something that would probably be more recognized as a physio as well, especially if you're in that kind of S&C area, that like CSCS would stand out a bit more. Whereas if you're a personal trainer, like, trainers don't really care about that stuff, but strength conditioning, yeah, CSCS seems like a good call there. So yeah, give that a shot, or get a mentorship. But they'd be some of the options. Now, ZMA, this is a supplement I haven't heard about for years. It used to be really like in trend, but not so much anymore. The question is, any cons, any downsides? Been having wild dreams, and wild is in capitals. And this is something that like a lot of people do report anecdotally. Potentially this could be just a bit of a placebo effect, where you read about it very frequently from other people, and maybe it's that, but it is something that seems to be observed fairly frequently. Now, there's not actually much research, if any, on ZMA specifically, the formulations themselves together. Effectively, what you're looking at is zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6. Most of the supplements that you'll take from the standard brands that you'd be buying tend to basically underdose all three of those, and certainly underdose magnesium and zinc. Maybe you get a bit more B6 sometimes, because they're generally a bit cheaper, but generally you're not getting massive quantities. Now, I'm not sure if there's any particular synergy that would explain wild dreams or anything. I'm not sure there's much of an indication for the supplement in the first place, to be honest, like, unless you've got an identified zinc or magnesium deficiency. Like, magnesium insufficiency is fairly common, especially if you don't eat a lot of like fruits and vegetables or plant foods generally, like, so there could be some benefit there. But I guess the cons, obviously your wallet, but I don't think there's any major side effects. None of those supplements would really carry significant risks. And I'm not sure if there's anything to the dreams, Paddy. What do you think?
Well, all of those, like zinc, magnesium, and B6, they all do have a role to play in, we'll call it tryptophan to melatonin synthesis. Yeah. So we could fucking mechanistically hypothesize here and be like, oh, well, the zinc is actually helping with enzyme function. The magnesium is also helping with enzyme function, and the B6 again helping with enzyme function. So you're actually getting more fucking melatonin secretion, and that's, causing dreams, or you're maybe getting more tryptophan across the blood-brain barrier, whatever. We could make some fucking mechanistic hypothesis here, and the thing about it is, it definitely is a thing that people get, fucking wild dreams. But they do seem to just stop after a while, and that could, maybe we could say, okay, well, that's because you fixed deficiency. You no longer have that deficiency. Maybe it was a B6 or maybe a magnesium, whatever the fuck, right? And now you don't have that anymore. So those dreams aren't as vivid because you just have that as a constant background or whatever, right? That's a plausible argument you could make. I don't think I've seen any research on that, so we could hypothesize that. However, like, what's the reason behind buying ZMA in the first place? Like, it's very poor, unless obviously you are deficient, especially in zinc. It's very poor at actually increasing testosterone, which is presumably why most people take it, because you're getting an insignificant amount of magnesium that could potentially help with sleep, again, through enzyme function and ATP, etc. So the only real reason, and especially it used to be marketed, especially in the 90s, for like testosterone, like, oh, testosterone boosting, you're gonna get fucking wild boners, etc. Like, it's just poorly researched, or poorly supported by the research. So it's a no from me. I just wouldn't even be taking it. Like, so in terms of what are the cons, I'd be asked a different question. It's like, what are the fucking pros? Like, there's very, very few pros to this. Especially considering, like you said, Gary, they're generally just underdosed. Like, you're probably getting the exact same amount of zinc, magnesium, B6 from just a fucking generic multivitamin. So take the multivitamin and get all of those things along with all the other things, that you're probably paying the exact same price for anyway, and that would be my thought process anyway. I literally have never recommended ZMA as a supplement for someone to take.
Yeah, so underdosed, probably overpriced relative to that, and very little, if any, benefits, and would probably be cheaper and more effective if you're genuinely interested in those three ingredients to get them separately. Get a better source of magnesium. Like, if you look at those supplements, very often it might be like 100 milligrams of magnesium oxide or something like that, which is just crap. Instead, go to like iHerb or something and buy a 180 caps of magnesium, and that's going to be a lot.
You can buy powder or something where it's
I actually have powder below, and it works pretty well. So there's options. Anyway, next question. We can both answer this, and it's pretty much the exact same answer. So, how long did it take for you to get your blue belt?
Well, this is not actually technically the exact same answer, because, right, technically speaking, I did like 3 years of MMA, right? So there's Jiu Jitsu in that. So do we count that as well? Because if we do, 5 years it took me to get my blue belt, right? But other than that, it took 2 years. And obviously there's a pandemic in there. I was also on holidays, we could call it holidays, for 3 months in that time in America. Now, I did do Jiu Jitsu in there when I was in America, but it's not in the same club. Your coach doesn't see it, and he's just like, right, well, if I didn't see it, it's not really fucking counting towards what I'm doing. But 2 years anyway.
Yeah, pretty much the same, like yourself, kind of changing back and forth. I had 6 months. I had 6 months of consistent training in Killarney. Okay, so that was a different gym, and then I trained for about 3 months in BJJ Cork, then stopped for like a month or something, then started again. Then the pandemic came. Then we basically weren't training. Did a bit of training in my backyard, but again, doesn't really count for anything when you're not in the club. So if you actually add it up, it's probably like, I don't know, a year and a half training in the gym consistently. And just, I just say 2 years, doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's just training. So there you go. That's the blue belt.
Also, and this is, it annoys people, but the belt literally means nothing. Like, it absolutely means not a single thing, you know, like literally I used to roll with like purple belts, tap them sometimes, you know, as a white belt, you know, so not to say that I'm fucking fantastic or anything, but I'm just saying like the belt literally doesn't mean anything at all. You know, it's a nice little marker of progress, you know, like people have these milestones in the gym, for example, they're like, oh, I remember the first time I squatted 1 plate, or I remember the first time I squatted 2 plates, you know, it's just like, yeah, they're nice little markers along the way, but ultimately, like, there's no weight classes in the jungle. There's no belts in the jungle. Nobody gives a fuck, you know? So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Also, I come from a sport, like previously I boxed for like 10 years where there's no belts unless you're obviously fucking king of the world, top, you know?
Yep, absolutely. I just view it all like education. For me, it's just like study. So leave the ego outside the door, focus on developing, put yourself in bad positions, tap without letting it hurt your feelings. And yeah, that's my philosophy. So there you go anyway.
Tap, do you? Ooh.
Oh, absolutely. You touch my left foot, I'm fucking tapping as soon as you look at it. Right. Owen asks, is there any situations where a slow concentric is preferred over a fast concentric? Yes. And I think we would have touched on these in some of the last few episodes, but there's a number of examples. So any machine or exercise in which it's very easy to launch a weight, I would favor a slower concentric. An example of that would be if you're using a cable machine, it can be a lot more complicated than this, but generally you can have a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 cable setup. So this means that the cable's either attached directly to the weight stack or it's attached to like a redirect, which is like a little circular wheel that then lifts up the weight stack. So this actually changes how much momentum you're going to generate when you move the weight. And you'll find this, that with those 1-to-1 weight stacks, what happens sometimes, like let's say you're doing a tricep push down, you know, you launch the weight down and you feel like for the bottom half of the rep, you're doing basically nothing because all you did was launch it from the beginning. Whereas with the 2-to-1 weight stack, it's actually more difficult to develop that momentum because the weight isn't displaced as much. And that's just to do with machine design. But you can feel that yourself independent of understanding the mechanics of the machine. So what you want is that you feel that you're working hard throughout the repetition, and different machines will feel differently in terms of that. Some machines you can move as fast as you want or intend to move as fast as you want, and the weight will still be challenging you all the way. But there's other exercises, for example, lateral raises or leg extensions, where you can launch the weight from the bottom a lot of the time, and then you basically do very little at the top, when in fact it's that top position that you should probably be trying to milk a lot more on those exercises. You know, the lying leg curl is another one. You see people like crank their hips up off the pad just to get into the top rather than actually allowing themselves to be challenged in that top position. So anywhere where you feel you're launching the weight or it's easier to cheat, slow down that concentric a little bit and focus on controlling. Now go ahead.
I was going to say there's 2 other things that I do it for as well. And maybe you're going to touch on them, but there's two places that I do it. One, most people are just pissingly weak in the entire movement. So I'm actually just going to get them to spend a little bit more time at different stages of that movement. Just as a beginner, generally, you know, I'm going to be like, right, we're actually going to do a little bit of if I could speak, a little bit of a longer concentric as well, because I basically want them to be at a position where once we actually really start loading this, you know, you have enough control through that entire range where if I was just to say stop, like you could stop that, or at least if we were to take a snapshot of that position, you're not out of position, you know, and doing slower concentrics do help with that. The other thing that I use them for is if someone has a relatively poor mind muscle connection or doing an exercise, they're not really like, they're generally like, oh yeah, I can feel my quad contracting or whatever muscle contracting. If they're like, I'm good with that, but then they're doing a certain exercise and they're like, I can't really get that connection. Like we might do some sort of lower or longer concentric for that lift where we actually just focus on the internal cues of like, you know, squeezing the muscle, or even external cues, like maybe you're pushing your feet against like the leg press or something, like you're trying to get some of that friction going, like almost doing like a leg extension, like different things like that. We might actually use a longer concentric just to build up a bit more of that mind muscle connection. But obviously that's going to only apply to a certain section of people where pure hypertrophy is the goal. It's like, that's all we're looking to do. We're trying to build muscle. It's not, we don't really care about how much weight we're lifting, etc. Those are the two other ones that I kind of use on top of like certain machines and certain exercises, just making more sense to have more control, to actually control momentum rather than, the actual internal stuff.
Yeah, and definitely in a lot of rehab contexts as well, I would be in favor of using slower concentrics and slower tempos generally. It just allows us to kind of manage the chaos. Like the more aggressive you are with moving weights, both in the concentric and eccentric, the more unpredictability there is. The slower you move the weight, the more predictability there is, the easier it is to stop the rep at any particular point. So particularly with things like tendinopathy or muscle strains and stuff like that, I want the person to be very aware at each point in the rep, very attentive to what they're doing, and just, being intentional about the next part of the rep. So I don't want them to be shying away from the bottom, 6 inches or the top 6 inches. So a lot of the time in rehab, with those types of clients, I'd be using slower concentrics as well. So there's some of the contexts in which it would be useful. Next question is from Paul. Why do you hate sushi? Have you no elegance? To be honest, I've actually never had sushi. Just even the thought of it just disgusts me, to be honest. Not a big fish fan.
That was Shane's exact response as well. He's like, I've actually never had it. How the fuck do you know what it tastes like then? How do you know how?
Well, I did actually. I think I might have had it. I think I had one bite once. I don't know. But anyway, just fish in general. I like salmon.
You can get literally salmon sushi roll.
Tuna's all right, but even like smoked salmon, even like having smoked salmon, like I think it's rotten. Like, just not about that life. Like, just warm it up, bro. So yeah, not really for me, to be honest. Just the look of it, even I'm like, nah, that just does nothing for me. So maybe I'll change my mind as I grow up.
Yeah, we might actually have to start growing up then, because legitimately, sushi is the best food on earth. Don't fucking at me. There's no question.
Nah, I'm too much of a basic bitch, I'm like, give me a burger, give me a steak, give me pizza, done.
That's your low socioeconomic status.
Absolutely.
And your low culture shining through.
Absolutely. And I stand by it all day, baby.
I'm out here eating caviar and fucking lobsters and sushi and everything, and you're over there going like, oh, fish.
Yeah, just give me some steak, man. Simple. Finally, Viekra asks how to structure training when seeking anaerobic adaptations. Now, when someone asks a question about anaerobic adaptations, my assumption is that they're doing some sort of sport that would require them to be working for very high levels of effort for maybe either repeated sprints or 30 seconds to maybe 5-minute bouts or something like that. So examples that would be like martial arts, repeated sprint sports. So even field sports where you have to be sprinting on a repeated basis, sprinting itself, and many, many other sports. Also, anaerobic fitness or anaerobic modes of exercise, or more anaerobic modes of exercise, can also contribute to your overall anaerobic fitness. So even if you're a marathon runner, you can still absolutely benefit from doing work within the 30 to 120 second duration at high efforts. So that still contributes to your fitness. Now, how to train? Obviously, it depends what you're looking for. Are you training for a particular sport, or is it just generally, I want to build my anaerobic fitness just because, And in that case, what you're trying to achieve is working at very, very high levels of effort for relatively short periods of time. Okay. It can be up to 5 minutes because like anaerobic metabolism does contribute to longer activities as well. But generally, it's the more lactic type of activities, if you will, exercises where you feel like your muscles are burning, you got a horrible taste in your mouth, you feel like you're going to get sick. Like that's what people associate with anaerobic training. So I like for most people to start off with bouts within the 20 to 60 second range with a mode of activity that allows them to really, really push themselves hard without extraneous limits. So for example, I don't want someone to do sprints if they've never sprinted before and their hamstrings are going to end up being a limiting factor, or they get a calf strain or something like that. So something like an assault bike, a good quality spin bike, or something along those lines where they can really work very high levels of effort, primarily concentrically. I really like that for building up the kind of maximal anaerobic side of things. There's many ways you could program it, but they'd be some of my starting points with longer rest to work periods typically. So somewhere between maybe 2 to 5 to 1 ratios of rest to work. But again, depends on the effort, the level of experience, and of course the goal.
Yeah, we also previously did an entire series on cardio. So go back, listen to that, because we actually did cover that question. So do go back and listen to that. Do you have any other questions there that just come to mind? Because I have about 2 or 3 here that I wouldn't mind getting to.
Yeah, no, fire away.
So one of the questions that I got, or variation of this, is, can you just do the same program forever? And this is obviously very relevant to what we were discussing. So Gary, can I just do the same program forever? Like, here, boom, I found this 4-day per week training program online. Can I just do it forever? Let's assume at least the variable that you're changing is you're getting stronger, you're using heavier weights. What's the story? Can I just do that?
I mean, yeah, you can, but there's probably barriers you're going to run into. One, you won't get your best results, but you don't need your best results. That's another thing. If you're training for health, you want to feel good, look good, and you just like showing up to the gym, doing the same session without having to think about it too much, that is absolutely fine, and more power to you, honestly. A lot of runners do that, actually. You see people who I just go for my 5K run 3 times a week. I don't even time it. I just run 5K. That's perfectly fine. If you're training for health, you want to feel good, look good, that's absolutely just perfect. Fire away. However, for most people, especially if you're trying to progress over time in strength and muscle, you will start to, have periods of slowing down in your rate of progress. But also, there's almost always, for everyone, going to be some point where your elbows are going to start getting at you, or your shoulders will be at you, or you'll get some sort of niggle on that pain injury spectrum that will stop you from being able to push yourself. And for me, at least in my rehab programming, one of the primary variables that I start to change with people is variation in their exercise selection, or variation in other training variables. So if you're following the same program all the time, my assumption is you're doing the same exercises, same rep ranges, same number of sets, etc. Whereas to kind of minimize the risk of injury and also to get over those periods of injury, typically variation would be a requirement, or at least a very strong recommendation. So I don't think you'd be getting optimal outcomes by sticking to the same program your life, all of your life, and certainly not your best adaptations, because there will come a point where that level of volume is simply not enough for you to continue progressing. Again, you mightn't want to continue progressing, and that's fine. But if you do, you probably will need to make some changes over time.
100%. I agree with you. We did an entire podcast as well on this in terms of periodization, etc., and also just progressions. But it just makes sense that, they always say, the best program is the program that you're not currently doing. So a bit of variety does make a lot of sense, both in terms of the exercises you're doing, both in terms of the different variables. So if you're literally just doing, I do 3 sets of 10 and I try to increase the weight whenever, you're going to be able to do that for a while, but there's going to come a point where either injury gets you, or little niggles, or you're just plain fucking bored, or finally you're just not really seeing a huge amount of progress from that. You're kind of just maintaining what you've built, which again, perfectly fine. I know people that go in and they're just like, I do my 3 sets of 10 on the bench press and I use 100 kilos and I just, that's all I do. I never try to increase it. I just do my work. Fine. I know how long my workout takes. I'm done. I'm not looking for crazy progress. But if you're just doing the exact same workout forever and looking to progress, you're probably not going to get optimal progress. Anyway, next question. They're basically, I'll wrap these 3 into one. Will cardio ruin your gains? Is cardio even necessary? And is it possible to train for something like a marathon while also doing resistance training? What are your thoughts, Gary, seeing as you have extensive running background?
Part 1 was, is cardio going to kill your gains? So yes and no. yes, in a sense that the more cardio you do, the lower probability you're going to maximize muscle building outcomes. There's kind of two parts to that. One is time. Okay. If you're doing, I don't know, 20 hours of cardio per week or something, like clearly that's going to leave you with very limited time to engage in weight training. And two is overall recovery capacity. Okay. So if you're constantly recovering from your cardio training or your running or your cycling or whatever, it's going to be very difficult for you to get to the gym, to give it your all, and for your legs in particular to be fresh for that activity. So you're not going to be able to handle as much volume. You're not going to be able to push yourself as hard, and that can limit your capacity to continue building muscle. There's also going to be some like adaptations that are specific to very high volumes of cardio training, like shifts in muscle fiber type and things like that, that could potentially interfere with you being able to maximize your muscle building. So I think at the extreme, yes, it can compromise it, but for most people, like most people aren't even meeting the basic requirements for health, whatever about performance. So I think most people don't have to worry about this at all. A lot of my clients struggle to kind of get near that threshold of 120 to 150 minutes of cardio per week. So that's not that much. That's like the health recommendations for cardio. So if my clients, who are probably more motivated than the average person, the general population, are struggling to get that, then like I'm just generally not worried about someone doing too much cardio. It's probably not much of an issue. And in some cases, it might even be beneficial for your gains, in particular for people who have an appetite that's very sensitive to cardio. I find that myself, where I'll get a disproportionate increase in my appetite when I'm doing more cardio, which is good because it allows me to eat the calories I require then to continue gaining weight, gaining muscle. And then there's the other side where the fitter you are, the more easily you recover from your resistance training. So if you find that being short of breath during your weight training sessions is a significant limiting factor, then improving that cardiorespiratory fitness might actually improve your weight training adaptations. It's speculative and it certainly depends on the person, but there is a case to be made there. Secondly, our second part of your question was, is cardio necessary? I would say yes, if you want to be or have a diverse base of fitness and you want to maximize your health, I would say cardio is necessary. Weight training is certainly going to improve your health. It's certainly going to improve your function in terms of having more muscle strength. But what it won't do for you is really maximize that cardiorespiratory fitness that is generally associated with improved all-cause mortality, reduced risk of many, many diseases, as is weight training. But the benefits are probably additive because they do different things. And obviously, in terms of your function, if you have better cardiorespiratory fitness, you're going to be able to do the things that matter to you for longer. And that's a good thing. So if I want to go for a hike, and I'm on holidays and it's a 2,000 meter mountain and I've never climbed mountains before, but I know I've been doing cardio in the gym all the time, I at least know that I have that engine to be able to go and do that task. And those things matter to people. The same can be said for like playing with your kids, particularly as you get older and you get the natural declines in fitness and muscle mass. If you've trained to build up a better reserve earlier on in life, it's more likely you're going to be able to do those things for longer. So is it necessary? I would say yes. You know, I don't see why you wouldn't do it. So there you go.
100% agree with you.
And finally, what was the last one? Is can you train for a marathon
while also doing resistance training?
You certainly can. I had my client James McIntyre this year do 100K while still being jacked and pretty strong, deadlifting over 200 kilos for reps. So I mean, he's a case example. But with that said, he had done many years of weight training, many years of other types of fitness that had laid his base prior to that. If you were to start from day one as a beginner and say, I'm going to train to try to maximize my muscle mass and I'm going to run a marathon, are you going to get the best outcome in each of those? No, of course you're not, because the marathon is something that less than 1% of people are ever going to do in their lifetime. It's a very extreme event. Okay. Even though it's only 4 hours or whatever, that's still pretty extreme. Okay. You're running 42K. So the training for that could be up to, 100 kilometers of running per week or even a lot more for some people. So if you're doing all of that activity, you run into the barriers that I mentioned previously, where you got less time for your weight training and less resources to allocate to your weight training. So you can certainly do both, and you can certainly make progress with both, but you won't get best results with either if you're doing them together.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I actually have nothing else really to add to that, because
Fantastic.
it basically just goes on to what we talked about previously in terms of periodization. There's going to be times where you focus more on resistance training. There's going to be times where you focus more on like your marathon training, like, you know, coming up to a marathon, whatever, the 16 to 20 weeks beforehand, you're probably going to be more focused on that. So your resistance training is going to be less, you know, 1-2 sessions per week, you know, whereas at other times you might be like, right, actually I don't have a marathon planned, or, you know, running isn't the main focus, so I'm actually going to use that time to maybe build a bit of muscle, rehab a few injuries, etc. You know, that's basically periodization. That's what we talked about in the last episode. There's going to be periods of time where you're focusing on different things, you know. And then I just have a final question before we wrap this up, Gary. How do you guys integrate bodybuilding, it's called, and BJJ? You know, we'll take bodybuilding to mean like resistance training, or, you know, building muscle, etc. You know, how do you integrate it, Gary? I presume this is a question aimed at just us in particular, not necessarily like how we would potentially do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like for me, at least, I've reduced the amount of weight training I do on average quite a bit, I think, especially like post-pandemic, getting back to doing jiu-jitsu more regularly. Like, I really enjoy jiu-jitsu. There's far more scope for improvement. And I've just so many skills that I can develop there, versus weight training, where like I wouldn't call myself an advanced lifter, but I've been lifting for quite a while. I've far stronger than I would have been when I first started. And I feel like, you know, I've done most of the things I would like to do related to weight training. Like, yeah, I'd like to gain some more muscle over the next few years, but it's not a massive concern for me. So as a result, I prioritize jiu-jitsu a lot more. This week, I'll probably do somewhere between 4 and 6 jiu-jitsu sessions, and I don't know, 3 weight training sessions, maybe. Some weeks that's as low as 2, sometimes it's high as 4. But I basically allow that to be the flexible component while getting in as many jiu-jitsu sessions as I can, because my fitness, like cardiorespiratory fitness, is at a fairly high level. Like for like my level in jiu-jitsu, and for someone who does weight training, like that's already at a pretty high level. My strength is at a pretty high level for my weight in jiu-jitsu again. So it's really, again, like we said in the last podcast, it's the skill component that I'm most concerned with. So that's what I'll spend more time on. If this was a general question asked in relation to what should someone do to integrate both, if they really want to prioritize bodybuilding, then they might want to do a little bit less jiu-jitsu and do more weight training, which is totally fair. And similarly, if they were analyzing their jiu-jitsu game and they were saying, I'm constantly short of breath and my fitness is letting me down, or my strength is letting me down, then you might need to prioritize those more than I would, or more than Patty might have to. So you just have to kind of be very clear on your goals. And because I'm able to say jiu-jitsu right now is more of a priority than weight training, I can allocate my training accordingly. And because I can do my needs analysis on my jiu-jitsu and say skill is most important, I can then allow that to inform my programming from there. So yeah, you need to run that needs analysis yourself. So what about you, Patty?
I'm basically doing like 4 resistance training sessions with some, you know, mild cardio at the end of it, anaerobic style cardio, like a sprints type deal, on the air down. And then I do jiu-jitsu 4 evenings a week, and I basically do it on the same day. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I do resistance training in the morning, do a day's work, jiu-jitsu in the evening, you know, and that's what kind of bookends my day. And for me, my kind of goals are more like, obviously I still need to get better at jiu-jitsu because I'm shit. But my kind of goals are to get bigger. I actually have been basically just, you know, kind of just fucking around for the last like 3 years, just maintaining, just eating well, training hard, nothing like specific in mind. But now I'm kind of like, right, I actually want to gain some more muscle. So a little bit more of my focus is on that. So like previously I was doing like, you know, maybe 2 hours of jiu-jitsu in the evening. Like I do the 2 classes back to back or whatever, or go to like the 90-minute class. But now I'm kind of focusing more on just, okay, I in and out in an hour, get the hour class in or whatever is equivalent. Like if there's extra rolls going, I'm not necessarily jumping in to do them. I'm not staying until like the very close of class, because I want to allocate a little bit more of that recovery time so that I can actually gain some more muscle, you know? So my focus is a little bit more we'll call it, aimed towards bodybuilding. And that's just purely because I want to get a little bit bigger than where I am right now. Because I'm 30 next year. So I would like to be jacked for that, first of all, which probably won't happen. And then going forward, I'd like to be by 35. I'd like to be like, right, I've actually maximized the amount of muscle that I can possibly gain in my lifetime. Because I don't think I'm necessarily too far off that. I have been lifting for like fucking 15 years now or whatever. So it's like, and I have been very consistent, at least 4 times a week for the last 15 years, barring, 1 or 2 fucking weeks here and there, and obviously, deloading and whatever else, but very consistent. So I'm like, right, I want to make sure that I have just fucking ticked the box and been like, right, I've got as much muscle as I possibly humanly could get with the genetics that I've been given, So that's my kind of goal. In that time frame, I would also like to get better at jiu-jitsu. So that is obviously also a goal. But like you said, needs analysis. I'm kind of like, they're kind of 50-50 at the moment. I'm like, I just want to focus on both of them, and as a result of that, I'm kind of doing a little bit more volume of training in terms of, number of sets per week than I previously would have. Like I would have previously been at like, okay, like this is 10 sets per week for certain body parts that I was like, I want to kind of make sure that they're still progressing. I'd be like, I'm just going to get the bare minimum of that. Some exercise or some body parts, I'd be like, right, I don't really necessarily need them to be excessively stronger or excessively bigger. So they're down at like 6. For me, I know about 6 sets per week that at least maintains for me. I know 4 sets, I'm like, I can maintain strength, size, etc. on 4 like hard sets per week. So 6 sets is a nice little like, it's, we're basically at maintenance, a little bit of gaining going on, right? But now we're kind of pushing the volume a little bit, and some body parts, they're up to like 15 sets per week, but yeah, it basically just comes back to finding out how much you can do, how much you can recover from, allocating your time and recovery capacities, to respect your actual goals, and then just taking it from there.
Check. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Easy. I just want 20-inch calves. Is that too much to ask for?
I think it is.
Probably is. Anyway, look, I have nothing else to say, Gary. So if you want to wrap this up, or if you have anything else to say finally yourself.
No, sir. If anyone has goals that they would like to pursue and you'd like high quality guidance towards those goals, we do have coaching spaces available. So you can work with one of the Triage team. Just get in touch with us and we will facilitate that. We do also have the Coaches Corner, which is our member site, where you can improve your education, knowledge of health and fitness and its underlying subjects with applied information. So do give that a look if you're interested. We have the podcast, obviously, which you know about and you listen to. So if you enjoyed this podcast and you like the Q&A episodes, you can let us know, feedback, share it on your story, leave a rating and review if you can, etc. You can also subscribe to the Triage Method newsletter. It goes out at the start of each month. And if you subscribe, you'll receive that monthly newsletter, which includes exclusive content that isn't released elsewhere, recommendations for different resources, whether it's apps, articles, podcasts, videos, etc. A snapshot of maybe one of our client testimonials and wrap-ups of the content we've put out for the month. So you can check that out. Other than that, we are active on social media. So do follow Triage Method and follow the rest of us as well, all the Triage coaches, by going to the following section on the Triage page, and you'll see all of our respective pages listed there. And that's it.
Fantastic, Gary. Anyway, I hope everyone enjoys the week ahead, and you know where we are. You can reach out if you have questions, if you want to get those questions answered. Again, get in touch. Anyway, peace out, guys.